Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Here with another update. We're going to be talking about what we've been up to as a family, and we're also going to be touching on the rather worrying news that's coming out about the government welfare cuts and specifically how they're going to impact those with disabilities, with special needs. Hey everyone, before we get into the topic, I just wanted to introduce myself to anyone that's new to the channel. My name's Ed. I am the dad of Finn, who will be 17 years old this year. He has fairly significant special needs, so the purpose of this channel is really to share our journey, hopefully share some of our learnings to those who may benefit from it. I'll make it very clear, we're not professionals, we're not legally trained or like doctors, nurses, consultants, etc. This is purely from a parent's perspective, but we're going to cover a broad range of topics from the healthcare system, schools, looking after yourselves as parents stroke carers, financial well-being, a whole array of topics. So please come and join us, subscribe, it's free, and it will really help grow the channel and get these videos out to those that would really benefit from them. Thanks very much. So let's start off by talking about the worrying news around the UK government, the proposals to make changes to the welfare system, and as a result, likely impact on some disability, special needs communities. I'm going to look a little bit off screen just because I've collated some facts and some figures as I've been reading into it and doing my research. But yeah, the UK government, they're saying they want to deliver 4.8 billion, so just under £5 billion worth of savings. Through changing the welfare system. They're saying the main driver, the reason for doing this is to get people back into work, to re-energise the economy. But yeah, I think most people's view would be, largely the key driver is a monetary one, to save money. And even the government themselves, as they've been working out, scenarios and some of the numbers that have been pushed out, this particular couple of numbers through the Department of Work and Pensions, they're saying that over 3 million families will lose on average £1,720 per year. So it's a fairly significant sum, and I'm sure a pot of money that, most, if all of those families will have a real, dependency on in order to, live, day to day. And then, further still, and there's some supplementary numbers basically saying that these changes will push around 250,000 families into poverty, and I think within there's 50,000 children, obviously as part of those families. So it's fairly broad scope of impact. In my opinion, I mean, this is a segment we're talking about. They're already proven to be financially, disadvantaged. If you look at, households that have disabled people within them, they always carry a higher poverty rate. They're more likely to use, food banks, and clearly, and obviously, there's health linked support that they need, and therefore the health linked benefits are really, really crucial to them. Lots of noise from the public, from charities, other groups, and yeah, there's a few polls in around. One I'm going to quote here, it's more in common, is that it's a NPO, a non-profit organisation, and the poll that they did, only 31% of Britons feel that the government is trying to limit the impact of cuts onto vulnerable groups. 20% think that it's not trying, and 36% think they've actually the government has actively targeted these groups. So yeah, it's fairly volatile numbers, and specifically a lot of these savings through this clampdown, as I'll call it, will be around really making the eligibility for the PIP, which is the personal independence payment, benefit that people will apply for, and if successful, be able to leverage. But yeah, kind of really making it harder, I guess, for folks to be eligible and get through that process. So the PIP itself, the facts in case you're not aware. It's a payment for those that have mobility issues, and or extra care needs. It's split into two parts. There's like a daily living component, and there's a mobility component, and you could get folks that are eligible for one, or both, obviously, for neither. But having one doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the other one. But through these changes that the government's talking about, the impact is specifically, in my understanding anyway, around the daily living components. And like all these things, it's a points-driven system. And again, the Department of Work and Pensions has said, look, you need a minimum of 4 points to be scored on one of the daily living activities in order to receive the daily living element of that. Of the PIP disability benefit. So if you look at the daily living activity, the kinds of things which it probes and it will be asking around is the ability for someone to prepare, eat food by themselves, wash themselves, bathing, toilet needs, incontinence, dressing themselves, communication, engaging with others, interpersonal skills, dealing face to face. And also a financial element as well around, can they make their own, budgeting, decisions. So it's a fairly broad range of things. So now, essentially, they're saying you're going to need to score a minimum of 4 points and at least one of the elements to be eligible. And I think those changes will impact, and this is, I'm going to quote another source, Scope, the charity, saying that through this change, at least 800,000 people will lose their daily living component, which is staggering. So there's a lot of let's be frank in terms of how these things are calculated and the scenarios, probably using different data sets or different assumptions. So I think like a lot of these things, the proof's in the pudding. Once it becomes reality, that's when these numbers certainly become more credible. But regardless, even the ones of a lower range, in the scheme of things, are staggering. And ourselves, we obviously have experience of going through the process. It is fairly broad at the moment in terms of the question sets. It's a bit binary. There's a lot of information which gets fed in. There's quality control through the government departments. Once you've provide the information, and off the back of that, a lot of back and forth. But it is. It's not straightforward. It takes a lot of time to do. It's stressful, particularly if you've got a real need and dependency on that component. We are in like I've said in previous videos, we're fairly fortunate in terms of both my wife and I do work. We're certainly not in poverty, but for families that going through it that really need that money, that on top of the day-to-day worries that they've got after caring for a child or an adult, or themselves, if they if themselves are impacting, is must be unbelievably stressful, and for me unimaginable. And also through this the PIP, the output is important. So it's not just about the PIP itself. That will be a gateway to getting other means of support. So for example, carers allowance. There's a few things which almost sit on the periphery, but you get the PIP, and then that allows you. It's a bit of a road in to the other ones. So it carries an impact. Final bits really to cover off on it. The timing. There's several elements to it. It is broader than the PIP. The reason I'm talking about the PIP is because this is the one closest to those with special needs. But some of the changes are going through consultation, and that ends on the 30th of June this year, so 2025. So that may delay things as the government faces a bit of scrutiny and challenge over their proposals. But equally, there's a lot of changes where the government isn't putting through consultation. It will go straight into Parliament, and they're talking about getting it through this season or session of Parliament, which ends 21st of July. So essentially that means that a lot of this stuff could be made law fairly quickly. I think with the PIP, they're saying, and it might be through the green paper, so through the proposal that they've done, the changes themselves are proposed for November 2026. So, a little way off. But if someone's currently in the circumstance at the moment where they are either entitled to, they're taking, or they think they may be going through the application process, then in a lot of cases it's probably unlikely that their scenario will change come November 2026, which in essence is a bit of continued worry for them around will they still continue to receive the money. So yeah, that's it probably for this this particular topic. It's something that's going to drive a lot of debate over few upcoming weeks and months even. So I'll try and stay on top of what's going on, and then I'll share updates as they appear through this channel. So moving on to something infinitely more positive, I'm just going to say a little bit about what we've been up to as a family. A few things on the go. Feels like a while since we did the last update, but yeah, on a medical side, we've had a recent meeting with Great Ormond Street, specifically with the epilepsy clinic, to go through like Finn's latest, how he's dealing these meetings, typically like 6 monthly, but how his seizures are coming along. Typically at the moment he is having, it varies between probably 4 and 7 seizures every evening, typically after he's gone to bed and just gone to sleep, and then early-ish in the morning the next day. So probably 5, between 4 and 5:30. It's not an exact schedule. It can kind of happen at any time or not happen. So he does have a VNS device. So it's like vagus nerve stimulation. It's something that sits just under his chest. It's a device, and it basically has a little wire coil that goes to the vagus nerve. So basically the surgery, it was done there, and then there was a separate incision made on the neck where this the wire is taken from, and it goes around the vagus nerve itself. The vagus nerve goes up into the brain, and basically the device is pretty intelligent. It will look for any onset triggers that could be a rise in temperature, or blood pressure, and heartbeat, I should say, and it will then try and offset that electrical stimulation that's going up to the brain to either reduce or ideally take out a seizure. For us, it hasn't really taken them out, so to speak. Like I've just said, Finn will still have every night there'll be seizures, and every morning, but we were up to about, without exaggeration, about 17 to 20 each night, and some of them going over 5 minutes, where it becomes quite dangerous, and you then have to phone A&E, get an ambulance out. And there was a spell of time where we'd have ambulances out, crumbs, probably once every week. Sometimes we had like 2 a week. It was insane. It really was, as we were juggling like medication and just trying to get it right. I've gone through at least 10 different types of epilepsy medication. It very much trial and error. This thing, fortunately, the VNS has worked very, very well. So we go to Great Ormond Street, and through a contactless device, they take the data off of it, and they can, monitor, how many seizures he's had. There's various settings, daytime, nighttime settings, etc. And they'll kind of tweak. He's had it for 4 and a bit years, I think, just coming up to 5 years. And herein lies the challenge, and the challenge is that the battery on it, doesn't last forever, because no battery does. But it is now 0 to 25, so it's not like a phone where you've got the exact percentage. Unfortunately, it does it in ranges. So it's 0 to 25, 26, 50, etc., etc. So now it's in the 0 to 25 range. We basically need to go in, unfortunately, redo the surgery in order to get the battery changed. I was having a bit of tongue-in-cheek joke to say, look, contactless charging, is there nothing that can be done like that? And one would like to think this technology will evolve over time, because it already has. But yeah, at the moment we are facing unfortunately, another operation. So we're on the list, and they estimated could be any, as soon as like 3 months. It really does depend on what happens. So we'll see. Yeah, see what happens. It needs to be done fairly promptly, because obviously if the battery runs out, then it puts him at a real disadvantage. And then, that plus he's still taking some epilepsy meds, but they are not sufficient in isolation to conquer, all the seizures that he's having. So it would, undoubtedly it would spell an increase. So yeah, they take it seriously. They're all over it. It's been fantastic. Cannot grumble about the hospital. They are, incredible people. And we'll see where we land with that one. And we also touched on the fact that 17 this year is 18 next year, which will mean a move to an adult hospital. You can't remain at Great Ormond Street. Obviously, it's just exclusively for children. So yeah, bouncing some ideas around where that other one may be. There's one slightly closer than, or the outskirts of London to us, or we could go right into London. To be frank, it's the logistics is a bit of a consideration, but I'm going to say the obvious again. The key consideration is the best, arguably the place we feel to be the best that can help Finn, particularly in adulthood. So yeah, some things to go through on that one. Locally with the school, school's still going well. We're now just broken up for the Easter break, so yeah, they're chuffed about that. So I'm still working. But my wife and Finn are off, so they've got, I think, a couple of weeks off. The lucky people. But we have in the last few weeks, it's been working well, the transport. There was issues with the bus transport to and from school, but now we've managed to get a taxi with a PA that escorts Finn back from school, which is a real help, and that enables myself and my wife to effectively do our work and do our job. So we are lucky and fortunate for that, but it was quite a process to go through, more to be fair for Bex, my wife, to pursue and just chase down and hound people to get the right outcome. But yeah, it's working out, and Finn gets back completely different person. He hasn't got the stress of the length of the bus journey, because there aren't the stop offs, and the noise, and a bit the claustrophobia, because albeit it's a minibus, there's lots of like wheelchairs and adults and kids. So for him, it's a bit of a post school stress. So that's worked out really well. Still going through with the legal application with the solicitors. So we're mainly pursuing, there's 2 deputyships, but the one we're really focusing on at the moment is around like welfare, and it kind of links into the Great Ormond Street discussions. We're making decisions for Finn very, very frequently, and when he hits 18, that's arguably, we're an input, but it's the ultimate decision makers are the specialists, the professionals, the healthcare professionals themselves. So we do want to remain, without sounding like control freaks, covering the best interests for our son. So that's what we'll continue to do. Really cool charity, which I've been to a couple of times before. I just wanted to mention, and I'll chuck their link in the description. They've got they've got a website that's certainly on Facebook, but it's Just Ride Southend, and it's a charity near to us. They run inclusive cycling sessions at a leisure centre. There's like a cycling track. I guess it could be used as a running track as well outside. And it's beautiful, like facilities. They've got loads of bikes. You can bring your own one along, or you can use one of theirs. But what makes it super, super special is that they have adapted bikes as well. So, for example, we've used a few different ones as Finn's got older, but the one we used most recently could literally just get his wheelchair, clamp it onto the front, and then I could cycle around with him in front. All very very safe, very stable. Particularly speedy, which was cool. But he loved it, and I think was it £2.50. We gave him a bit more because it just seemed criminally cheap, to be honest. It was like £2.50, including me as the carer. So I was just like, no, you can't need charity. So we bumped that up genuinely, because that was just crazy. But it just goes to show, perhaps if you don't have more limited funds, then again, hopefully that makes it a bit more accessible. But £2.50, it's open 3 days a week, and I think it's like 10 till midday, or certainly a couple of hours in the morning. So brilliant place, really, really cool. And that concludes the video. Thank you ever so much for watching. You could really help me out by subscribing. It's free to do, but most importantly, what it means is it pushes out our content further, and hopefully makes people that would benefit from these kinds of videos, aware that we exist as part of this massive YouTube universe. Specifically around this video, would love you to leave a comment, particularly in terms of the welfare changes. Are you impacted by them? Do you have any views? And then perhaps also on the leisure front, do you have any places, close to you that are great for those with special needs? Such as this Just Ride place I've spoken about. We don't have very many, so just interested to hear what's out there. All the best, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.